Hello class, welcome to our lesson for today, dealing with section 1.3, which is subtracting integers. Now really the goal in everything that we're looking at with subtraction is that we're going to try to make things look as much like addition as possible, and so if everything from the last section made sense, then hopefully the things from this lesson will also make sense. If you don't mind, I'd like you to make sure that you know how to find the answers to these questions here. I'm not going to spend too much time looking at them specifically because these are the 6 versions that should be easy to find. So if you want to pause and try them out and make sure you know how to find the answer, go ahead. In general, though, you should be really good at subtracting a higher positive minus a lower positive. The only thing you might have to deal with is borrowing. And here are the 6 answers to these questions. The one note I want to bring to your attention is on questions 5 and 6. You have to make sure with subtraction that you go left to right because the commutative and associative properties don't work. Keeping that in mind might be helpful as we move to the rest of this lesson because for addition, you can use the commutative property and associative property. So that might be something that might be useful to us as we go through today. I'm going to use some integer counters here again just to make sure I explain some things in a more visual sense for those of you that are more visual thinkers. This is obviously a basic example. We know that 4 minus 2 is 2, but the reason that it works is because you had 4 originally, and then you're getting rid of 2 of those things. So 2 are left, and that's why 4 minus 2 is 2. That idea is important because subtraction is getting rid of that idea. So if there are some of those in the original problem, in the first half of the problem, then they just kind of cancel themselves out. Notice this idea of canceling is exactly the same as if I said 4 plus negative 2. So 4 plus negative 2 gets rid of 2 of the positives with 2 of the negatives because they're kind of going at each other because it's addition. And that's the same idea, okay, as the last slide. It's just showing it in a different way. This is what we did in the last section. Adding a negative and a positive, really you're doing subtraction and you find the difference between them. The next one is negative 3 minus 1. So on a number line, this is easy to show. So negative 3 has to go back 3, and the minus 1 goes back 1 more. So the idea of the number line, you're still going backwards or forwards in a similar way. You just have to make sure you're going far enough in each direction. Notice here that this actually becomes negative 4. You're not really doing subtraction here. You're actually adding them together because both the pieces are going in the same direction. So negative 3 minus 1 is the same really as negative 3 plus a negative 1. And the reasoning is because it's going back and back some more. So you're really just adding 2 negatives together. So the easiest way to deal with subtraction is really subtraction is the same as adding its opposite. So 4 minus 2 was the same as 4 plus negative 2. The general rule will be what is kind of known as keep, change, change. There's a small video. If you watch that song will be stuck in your head for a while. Similar to keep, change, flip. So keep, change, flip was for dividing fractions. Keep, change, change will make subtraction into addition. Now, when we are doing that, I obviously know that 10 minus 4 is easy to find. I'm not opposed to knowing things like this. I want you to practice this keep, change, change idea for now because I want to make sure the whole class is dealing with it in the correct way. So you need to understand what keep, change, change means. That means it's keep the first number, change the sign from a minus sign to a plus sign, and then change the number to its opposite. Okay, I want you to do that for this section. When we get further along, you can kind of do pick and choose a little bit more, but I want you to work on that today, especially if you're confused. I think it'll really help you as you're looking at this lesson. Here's a whole list of different things, and really the whole point of this list is to talk about how keep, change, change works. So each group of them is doing the same thing. I don't want to focus as much on this add, subtract idea. Really what this is saying is, well, once I get to the addition, should I be adding or subtracting? Okay, so if you look at 4 minus 2, 4 minus 2, you should do subtracting, and the answer is 2. If I keep the 4, change minus to a plus, change 2 to a negative 2, that's the same question, and I get the same answer. Notice here, negative 3, keep, change minus to plus, change 1 to negative 1. Really, I'm doing addition because they're the same sign. You lost and lost some more. That's the difference of that scenario. You notice that the rest of these all the way down the list are all subtraction. The key one is one like number 13. So number 13 has a lot of negative signs, and I think that's what students sometimes struggle with is just how many negative signs there really are. So here, 6 minus negative 3 would be the same as 6, keep, change minus to plus, change minus 3 or negative 3 to positive 3. And then you should be more comfortable with this idea on 14 versus 13. The idea is also this double negative. That's where the whole idea of double negative becoming a positive starts to come into play. The reasoning is because if I go back 6 and then back 3 more, that should be negative 6 plus negative 3. So if negative 6 plus negative 3 goes back further, minus the negative has to go the other way. And so that's kind of what it's looking at when it comes to these scenarios. Just realize that each pair is doing the same thing, and that's what keep, change, change really is talking about, or also known as adding the opposite. Okay, so really all my questions I'm looking at for the rest of today are just keep, change, change. I'm doing it on every question. Look, if I can do it on every question, you can do it on every question. So please make sure that you're working on that for this lesson. I know that it's tedious. I know it's going to cause some concern, but it's really going to help us out when we get further along in the semester in order to be comfortable about finding answers. So 9 minus 8, I keep, change, change, make it plus negative 8, and the answer is 1. Obviously, we already knew that. It's going to be more helpful on questions like these ones. So like, for example, this bottom one, negative 16 minus 4, keep, change minus to a plus, change a negative 4 or 4 to a negative 4. And now I'm really adding 2 negatives, and I get negative 20. If there's any questions about these, please make sure you ask someone about it, or you could ask me about it, pause your video, because you want to make sure that you understand where they come from. So I'm not going to go over each individual question necessarily right now. The visual, I think, probably helps a lot of you. But remember, my goal is to make it addition so that they can go against each other if they're one positive, one negative, or they add each other up if they're both positives or both negatives. So for example, negative 3 minus 4, keep, change the minus to plus, change 4 to negative 4. Notice I'm just adding 2 numbers up, and it's 7, but it's negative. My favorite is like this one, 8 minus negative 7 is really 8 plus 7 with keep, change, change, add the opposite, and so that's 15. You'll also have questions when we get further into the lesson that have more than 2 numbers. Now, if there are more than 2 numbers, you can basically keep and then anything with subtraction change. So notice here, plus negative 2 is just plus negative 2. I leave it. Minus negative 8, change, change. So change minus to a plus, change negative 8 to 8. Minus 12, change, change. Change minus to a plus, change 12 to negative 12. Now, once it's all addition, this is what's so cool about the addition properties. You can use the commutative and associative properties. This is like the withdrawing and depositing of the bank question like we did before. I'm going to take all the withdrawals, all the negatives, and add them together. I'm going to take all the positives, the deposits, add them together, and then do one big subtraction problem. That's how I think many of you should look at these questions. It might be easier to deal with long term. So the answer here should just be 1, because 15 plus the negative 14, that's just going to be 1 in that case. Okay, that's everything for today. That's an intro to subtraction. Our next lesson will deal more with subtracting integers and kind of look at some different example problems and maybe a couple substitution questions. Your homework today, make sure check out answers, write the original problem, and try keep, change, change to add the opposite. Regardless of your skill level, I think everyone can at least get the original problem down, keep, change, change, and then we're going to try to do things like we did the previous day. Have a good day, everybody.